Welcome Home Radio Podcast. Are you looking to buy or sell your home? Our team is here with answers to guide you through the buying and selling process. We encourage you to ask questions. Please comment on this show or visit us at welcomehomeradio.net for more information. Bringing real estate, lending, and education together in one place, and to help you make the right home decision for you and your family.
Well, and good morning, everybody out there listening to us in podcast land and every other type of way you could hear us. We're welcoming you today to a show that we put together. My co-host here with Blair Thomas, with our alumni lender will be here. And then we've got Jeff Duffy as well. He's the title guy. And myself, Tom Holm. I'm with Champion School of Real Estate in the instruction, senior instructor for them, and have been for the last 20 years teaching for Champion School of Real Estate here in Texas and across the nation for that matter as well. I help with getting the licensing for realtors and for licensing for the loan originators throughout the state of Texas. But I have the great honor today of introducing Roy Carter to you. And Roy has got more than 25 years, probably going on about 100 years, it probably feels like, of inspection, real estate inspection experience. He's the Director of Inspector Education with Champion School of Real Estate. He's responsible for statewide inspector programs as well as any national course offerings that they put out. And Roy's got this history of being well known in the inspection business. He's a member of the American Society of Home Inspectors, ASHI. And Roy, it's great to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
Well, it's super to have you here. One of the things we'd like to start off with, our listeners out there may be in the real estate field. In another part, they may be realtors. We have lenders out there that listen to our program, listeners all the way from Australia to California to Nevada to everything throughout the United States that listen to this podcast. So we're going to address mainly Texas as far as getting licensed in Texas. Tell us the process as far as that goes, because I realize the process in Texas is a pretty stringent process, and this would be consistent with most of the states. Is that correct?
It would be. It would be
Okay.
for the most part. Yeah.
So tell us what you go through to be a home inspector here in Texas.
Well, to become a professional real estate inspector in Texas, and to bypass any sponsorship requirements, because you have two paths. You can do the traditional sponsorship route, or you can take the 194 hours of professional real estate inspector core related courses, and that would bypass any form of sponsorship, which the majority of the people that come through the program, they do the 194 hours so they can not have to worry about having a sponsor. And in doing that, the course is broken down into two separate tracks. One is the national portion of the program, because you have to pass a national portion of the exam. And then the other 84 hours is broken up into the state portion of the course, because there again, you have to take the state portion of the exam and pass both parts in order to become licensed. But
So let me get this straight. It's 110 hours for the national and 84 for the state.
that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two separate paths. Now, obviously, I can see why you'd want to choose that path easier than doing the apprenticeship that you would be asked to do on 2 years. But how does that affect the overall quality of that inspector? I mean, I'm sure anybody could work as hard as they could, but if you have somebody and you're a protege for somebody for 2 years, seems like that would be a little bit more effective.
It may seem as though it might be a little bit more effective, but you don't have a lot of people out there that's willing to take people down that path. And that's part of the reason why the state came up with the the advanced course hours to bypass sponsorship, because just like with anything else, you know, people play that, what I would call that knock, knock, the game is locked. So, you know, but the demand for the inspections were up. So, you know, there again, you had a segment of the public that wasn't getting served because there wasn't a number of inspectors that be out there to serve them, when everybody was saying, well, no, I'm not sponsoring. No, I'm not sponsoring. No, I'm not sponsoring. And those that are sponsoring is relative to the family and friends and things of that nature, and not people that they're not really associated with or don't know, you know, that kind of way. And the way our program is structured is pretty intense. To include, they also get some time within a house as well when they get over to the state portion, because they do 40 hours of Texas practicum, where they actually marry them up with a professional inspector, one of the family members, because as you know, we look at you as family when you come through Champions. So we marry them up with one of the Champions professional inspectors that's gone through the program, and they'll take them out on inspections. They'll do 40 hours, minimum of 5 inspections. And generally speaking, they probably take them to about 10 through 10, but they'll have their 40 before then. So, and then they continue that relationship thereafter. So they get a lot of shadowing and practicing under that same concept as well. So it's pretty intense.
Wow, it does. How many courses does that break down into? Do you know, is there an actual number that you could tell our listeners that they'd expect to be taking?
Yeah, the national portion of the exam, I call it national/state, because the tried and true information stays the same, because a roof is a roof and a foundation is a foundation.
Wait, they're not different?
Yeah.
I thought those people in Oklahoma only use clay on their roof.
There you go. So what they learn over there on that side, they still apply when they get over there to the state modules. But the national modules are made of 4 courses. There's the 40 hours of property building module 1, which entails from the soil to the foundation, to the hazardous glazing locations, to the stairs, to the emergency escape and rescue, interior, exterior. It covers all of those particular items. Then you have the second module, which would be the module 2. And then that's when they get into the electrical and the plumbing, the HVAC system, and the insulation and ventilation and things of that nature. And then followed by that is the third module, which would be the analysis and finding and report writing module. And that's kind of a summary of module 1 and module 2. So now it's a matter of you seeing everything that you're supposed to be seeing and doing everything that you're supposed to be doing to actually populate a report and take care of the client. And then the final module in that one is the business operations and professional responsibility module, where you kind of learn some of the laws and the contract languages and things of that nature, and do's and don'ts. And then once they've completed all of that, then we ask them to make the application to the Texas Real Estate Commission. And once they make that application to the Texas Real Estate Commission, then they would take our prep program in preparation for that exam, which our prep is second to none, including we got 5 national mock exams. So anyway, they would come back, and then once they have completed the prep, and then they take that national portion of the exam, and they pass that, then they would come back and get their Texas modules. And the Texas modules are made up of 20 hours of Texas law. And then there's 24 hours of Texas standards of practice. And that's where they get specifically more in depth as to what Texas requires you to look at on a property. And then once they complete both of those modules, then we would assign them to a professional inspector to go out and conduct inspections with them. So, and these are actual homes that are up for sale, and they're out there participating, basically bringing the bookwork to life.
So you actually have a reference system in place to help people with that part where they need to be working with an inspector. Am I hearing that correctly?
That is correct. Yep, we do.
Okay. Tell us about just one last question on the expense of this. What would you total all in? I mean, there's equipment you have to buy. There's courses you have to take. Rough figure. Let's let the listeners know what they would look for. Fees that you pay to the state. Just kind of give us a rough ballpark figure as far as what an all-in cost would be to do that very first inspection.
Okay. Well, I'll break it down in several different parts, but the education for the 194 hours is $29.99.
Okay.
And you could pay for that by the national. You could pay half of that, and then you could pay the state part when you're ready to do the state part.
So $30 to get all that done.
$30. That's it, and you're in.
Okay, there's a little facetiousness there for our listeners, just so you know.
And if you call by 10, we'll waive a payment.
But you still have to pass the test.
You still got to pass the test, though. That's absolutely right.
There you go.
Let's bring it back into the guidelines.
Yeah, let's get the reality there, please.
Yeah.
So we spend $3,000 for education. What else is the expectation?
Yeah, and what I'm going to say too, that if you are a veteran with a veteran that has served, you can take 25% off that price.
And so it looks like certain people in our crowd here, maybe Blair, may be in your classroom coming up next week. So
I love it. So,
and then beyond to the test though, because that's not an easy test.
I've
heard. It is not.
It's not.
Does this fall under the Biden forgiveness program?
No.
You're getting 25% off, cheapskate. Come on.
Hey, I am a cheapskate.
And then after that, the application is $120, and then you have fingerprinting, which is $38.25. So that's about another $150.
It's
give or
money.
take.
I can't do it.
Yeah. And then after that, you'd have, depending on what you have equipment wise, most people are probably about $350 to $550. Depending on, like I said, there's some specialty items that we use, infrared thermometers and gas leak detectors. So most people have what we use on a day-to-day basis, screwdrivers and pliers and flashes, stuff like that. So it'll be the specialty stuff that they may need. And then they'll need $100,000 per occurrence E&O / professional liability policy. And then that will run them about $875 to $925 for the year. So,
Okay.
I'll stay right where I'm at.
So you're about $5,000.
There you go. That's kind of what I'd want to know if I was going to get it. And you're basically buying a business. You're becoming self-employed. Tell us those first steps as an inspector. What would be the way to build business? What is the recommendation there for me to start getting, business through the door?
All right. Well, we give them a complete marketing plan to include a month-to-month. And I used to tell them that if you follow our marketing plan in the first 30 days, you start to see fruits of your labor in the next 30 days. But then the Texas market got really, 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 really hot. Really hot. And so what we're seeing now, if you follow our marketing plan in the first 2 weeks, then our folks are seeing fruits of their labor in the third week and then the fourth week. And then it continues to grow from there. And what I tell them is that in part of it, we give them something that's called a first thing first. When you first get your license, then you got to go get your super key or your e-key so you can get in and things of that nature. And then began to go out and start shaking hands and making friends. And I tell them that you're sitting in one of the premier real estate schools in the country. You just got to come in and tell the family that you're here. And the family will give you an opportunity. You just got to go do quality inspections after that. And then it continues to grow from there. And then outside of coming into speaking to some of the classes at Champions, then I tell them to go where the masses meet. You go to a Women's Council of Realtors meeting and shake some hands and make some friends. You look at the board because you've already joined the board, and then you look at the various committees and see which ones really prompt your interest. I say you don't join something just because you want business. You join it because you actually care about it. And then you look at the board functions, and then you start going to the board functions because they're always raising money for some type of charitable event. And so I said, by doing that, you actually are introducing yourself to realtors from various offices, as well as title and mortgage real estate attorneys, because you're going out to the masses versus going to office by office by office. And I say, and ultimately what you're trying to do is establish that relationship so that when anybody says, have you heard of, somebody will say, yeah, they're participating. They're giving back to the community. Because even with those things on the board, if they're giving, trying to raise money for a family or whatever the case might be, I say, you don't have to give money. You can just go give your time and just be a part of it, because that's how those relationships get built, right? First, I know you, then I like you, then I trust you. Now I can begin to use you. So,
and people out there, again, that are contemplating this, is there any particular kind of makeup as far as the type of person? I mean, I know you're pretty gregarious. I know you have a lovely wife that makes sure that you're out there working every day. Love Cindy very much. Thank goodness she's got the whip.
I'll pass that on.
Making you go forward. Thank goodness for that. But the nice thing about that, with regards to that, what do you see typically as the person? Are they coming from the real estate business already? Are they realtors or engineers, or is it just pretty much all over the board? People that want to be entrepreneurs? I mean, what do you see as that origination point?
It is a cross section of people from various backgrounds and degrees. Obviously, we get some of the engineers. We do get some real estate folks. We get some appraisers. We get adjusters, but we also mainly get a lot of people. We get a lot of people from the oil field. We get pilots. We got teachers.
Okay.
We got police. I always tell everybody this is a learned profession. So you can pretty much come from any background because you're going to learn everything that you need to know. I think the person that really adapts to this is the person that has a good attention to details.
Okay. That would really make sense, wouldn't it? Is there ongoing, speaking of education, is there ongoing requirements for renewals for educating? Is there an annual thing or biannual or?
Yeah, your license is good for 2 years, so you have to renew every 2 years, and you have 32 hours of continuing education
Each year.
Well, yeah.
Each renewal period.
Each renewal period, yeah.
But you're not retaking the test. You're just having those hours.
That is correct. Yeah. And the state dictates 8 of them because it's about the legal and ethics and SOP. So they want to make sure everybody's up to date. And then you take 24 hours out of any one of the TREC approved course related subjects that you feel like is of interest to you.
Cool. Well, I'll open it up for my partners here to ask questions that they're thinking about. I know that, again, this process is something that will help people get into the profession, and that's what we wanted to start with. One last thing I want to ask you: what got you into it?
That was my first question.
I took it. I saw it. It's mine. Think of another one.
Right.
Get away from my list.
Well, my formal background is banking and mortgage banking. And
Really?
Yeah, my formal background is banking and mortgage banking, and also served too. But when I was in the banking and mortgage banking, me and a friend got connected, and we started doing finish out of commercial properties. And we did some stuff for family and stuff like that, but it was mainly commercial. And, we built some room additions and stuff for family and a couple of houses and stuff like that. But I worked for the bank. He ran the cruise. But part of my thing with the bank is that I got up to the point to where I would go out with the new construction folks or the rehab lending departments. And then I would go out and walk houses when I was bored. So I say, well, I'm going out with y'all this afternoon. We start walking houses. So when we started doing the renovations and stuff like that for commercial properties, finish out work. Then once I got off from the bank, I would go and walk whatever work they've done that day.
Oh, wow.
And so then I would write up the punch list and send it to him and say, this is what needs to be taken care of the next day, or we'll talk that evening, obviously. And so I was in the military.
And that was a precursor to the builder getting their draw. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
draws and stuff like that, and just getting paid for the whole project.
Okay.
So, yeah, you got it. And so I was also in the National Guard, and at one point was about to get ready to, all my equipment got shipped to Desert Storm and stuff like that. And so I said, well, I had a pretty good relationship as far as the bank and stuff like that is concerned, and then we had a pretty good business building then. And I said, well, you know what? If anything should ever happen that I actually get sent off, that whole business with the finish out and stuff is pretty much done, for the most part. I mean, he could carry it, So then I started looking and I said, well, wait a minute. The state is about to start licensing. And I said, so they're fin to level the playing field. I said, so I'm going to get into doing the inspection. So now you just get in and tell people what's wrong and then you get out the way.
Right.
You don't have to worry about change orders. You don't have to worry about all of those different things that happen when you're doing finish out work or, building somebody's house or rehabbing or whatever the case might be. So then that would also free me up that if anything were to happen militarily, then I would still be able to have a practice and then have people just cover the inspections and stuff like that, but not have a major project going with finishing out, buildings and stuff like that, because those are pretty stout. So then I said, okay. And they did that. And then I got trained by the gentleman that wrote the first inspector book and had the first inspection school in the state of Texas, Mr. Russell Burgess. So, and
Wow.
Him and his crew was my mentors over the years. So
That's probably a pretty good mentor.
Yeah. And they have a pretty good practice, multi-inspector practice in the Dallas area, so that his grandsons and nephews still run it, and they hire plenty of our champions inspector grads. So
Way cool. Excellent. Well, that's what I wanted to handle here at first, was this process. What you got, Mr. Duffy?
I was curious when you mentioned many coming out of college. And getting, are there certain courses that really put them ahead of their licensing that may have already had as they graduated college, or is that still just a fresh start when you're taking those courses?
it's really just a fresh start. It's really a fresh start. I think what tends to happen is a lot of people, and we get people that coming out of high school too that just gravitate to it. I think their family or friends see them and say, well, you know what, have you ever looked at this? Because I always say the inspection business is one of those little known professions where you can make a pretty good living and nobody knows what you do. Nobody knows what you do, right? Even the neighbor, only thing the neighbor knows is that you come and you go. You come and you go, right?
Wonder what the hell Roy's doing today.
Right? That's the only thing they know. They're like, man, but,
He disappeared.
So when you just pull up, you're there for a little while and leave, you just start rumors in the neighborhood. That's
exactly,
it.
exactly. They're like, I don't know what's going on with that, because that's, everything that we do happens inside of the real estate community. There's no formal advertising for inspectors. There's no billboards. There's no print media. There's no commercials. There's none of that, So people either had an inspection done and they wrote the check, or somebody in their family said, or a friend said, hey, have you ever looked at this? This fits with your particular skill set and how you think and how you carry yourself, and the attention that you have to the details. And so then they do their due diligence and say, oh yeah, I think I can really do this. So.
Can you also?
I know many good inspectors, and it's a great career opportunities for many. And I've been interested in the past, but then when you mentioned one of the big keys, and that's attention to detail. So I knew pretty quickly. I thought, no, that's not going to be a fit for me.
Well, I think you're doing that title stuff. I think you got the attention to detail down.
Let's hope he does.
Right?
That's true. It's all about the team, sir. It's all about the team.
Well, that
Makes
part's
me a little
true, too.
scared as far as that goes, and now we're pointing that out. But
I'm happy at the moment. Blair's not saying anything to back any of that
He's
other
being
stuff
real
up. We worked
quiet,
together
isn't
for a
he?
while, so
he's just soaking it in, trying to figure out, was that last deal I sent to Jeff a smart idea?
absolutely.
Roy. Oops.
Well, I would like to get to our title of our show, which is Home Inspection Checklist. So, Roy, if you would take our listeners, and what is a basic inspection going to cover for them, for their, give us the 50,000 foot view. We don't have to go into total detail, but what is on that checklist for them to get awareness on a home they might be buying?
Well, it's we cover everything from the rooftop to the soil underneath. So I would always say that the 5 major items that we look at would be foundation. That would be number 1. And that's the biggest of concern with most people. Followed by that would be the roofing. And then followed by that would be the electrical. And then you hit HVAC, and then you hit plumbing. And then I say that we go into the attic and we check the structural members of the attic, and if there's any unsafe conditions that would be up in that attic, just like we walk the perimeter of the property to see if there's any adverse conditions that could affect the performance of the foundation. And then, of course, we go throughout all the rooms in the house, checking the appliances, the windows, the doors, and things of that nature. We'll take the dead front cover off the electrical panel, providing it's accessible. To check to see if there's any unsafe wiring conditions inside of that panel box, and things of that nature. But the 5 majors would be the foundation, the roofing, the electrical, that HVAC, and then the plumbing. But we basically look at everything.
How does it change from whether you're doing a conventional loan, FHA, a VA, or USDA? On your inspection, does anything change? If so, please let us be aware. If not, it's basically across the board. It's the same thing that you would do every time, no matter what type of loan. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. That is correct. And, most inspectors rely on, a solid routine. And I say the way we train our folks, we load the house. I say you load the house as though you hosted the family for the holidays. And everything in that house should be able to take all loads imposed, so water's running, all the electrical's on, everything's going, and then you rely on that solid routine so that you can document whatever's not performing as intended in the report form, which is the product that we produce. And we always say a good report for us is one that anybody can go back to that house and find without pictures. That's how the comments should be written. Now you add pictures because that obviously helps in some lane, but the comments should be written as though there is no picture, because nobody puts a picture of every deficiency in a report, but somebody should be able to go back to that house and find what you're talking about without a picture. I always say you want your phone ringing for additional business, not to try to figure out what you're saying, what's wrong, and where it is.
I sure do put a lot of pictures in my rebuttal for my taxes.
I feel you on that one. That's needed. Yes, sir.
As a licensed inspector, then when you submit that inspection report, how long? What's the best way for me to put it? Are your feet held to the fire to that report? There has to be a time frame, doesn't there? You can't say, well, you can't expect me. That was 2 years ago. I'm not held accountable for that because things have changed in this time since this issue popped up. Well, how does that work?
The inspection itself is as of the date and time inspected. It doesn't give any future life performance. So you're taking a snapshot in time. So anything that has happened in that house up to that time frame, we don't get into future life performance on anything.
So I buy a home and move in, and something wasn't on the report, but something happened. You can just say, hey, that was 2 weeks ago. That was then. This is now, right?
Well, it would be a matter. It would be a matter of what it was, right? Because as far as TREC, Texas Real Estate Commission, that particular client has 4 years to file a complaint from the date of the inspection to file a complaint with TREC.
Okay.
And if it had to go to the potential of a lawsuit, then there's 2 years from the date they become knowledgeable of the offense to decide to bring cause against you.
Okay.
So when we say that it's as of the date and time inspected, if it was something that was obvious and that inspector chose not to write it up for whatever reason, yeah, then obviously they could be held accountable for that. So,
and then because I wonder if folks realize, as an inspector, you're there for quite some time in that home, right? What is that average report?
The average inspection time is an hour per 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
So
I don't think a lot of times people realize how long you're there and how detailed you are, and you're looking and how you test everything out.
Yeah.
Now, the other question with that is, you are not responsible for, let's say rodents, but if you see signs of rodents or termites, even though that's not in your repertoire, that's not your responsibility, are you still pointing that out, obviously, or is that, you have to be cautious with that?
You got to be cautious of how you say it. So, right, without having the license, you couldn't say that I observed termites. You can say you appears to have termites. Okay. Right? Because that's not
the same thing with a rodent. You can say, hey, I see in your attic you have remnants that you had some mice or something up in here. I can show you that, but I can't. Or
feces and stuff like that. And then you could recommend that they have somebody, and for the most part, most of the inspectors, if they don't have that license through the Texas Agricultural Pest Control Board themselves, we tell them to establish a relationship with a pest control company so that they can come out on behalf of that client at the same time that they're there. It'd be like, I don't do it, but I work with a pest control company that can come out and do that WDI report on your behalf, to have that particular relationship. That way we could stick to the structural and mechanical or any damage that might have occurred because of that. And then they can actually get to the identifying if that was part of the cause or not, that kind of thing. Stuff.
So
like
if you see a rodent, but you really can't say, it's the appearance there. You can't say, I saw a rodent.
Now, I can say I saw a rodent. That's different than saying I saw a termite or a powder post beetle or a carpenter ant. That's different. So just like I can say that attic was inaccessible due to a lot of feces or rat droppings or mice droppings or whatever the case might be. We can go there. We just can't positively identify wood destroying insects unless you have the license.
But if I'm in the house when the inspection's being done, the inspector can say I saw a rodent.
Yes. Or you got an
while I'm standing there, should he tell me or should he just write that in the report?
Well, I think at some point at the conclusion of the inspection, you do a presentation to your client. So at that presentation, then any of those notes that you have put in the report, you should tell them. I wouldn't stop my inspection to go run and tell them that, hey,
I saw a rodent with a big red shirt on.
Exactly. It was jamming to the beat.
One of the last questions on my checklist here, stuff that I was going to ask about, if you find a bad foundation, you just tell them, hey, you got a bad foundation?
Well, we would have to go through to get to a bad foundation, you would have to document all the symptoms and signs that led you to that conclusion. So,
in other words, do you do that thing like they measure when they come in your house and you've got movement, the device that they put that measures, you got 1.5 inch variance from the kitchen down to the northeast corner of the house or whatever? Is that?
We're not required to use any specialized tools.
Okay. He's got an 8-ball in his bag. He just sets it in the middle of the floor and see where it goes and how fast.
Some do put the ball on there and then let the ball roll because you can feel it. You know what I mean? So you rely on the symptoms and signs. You look at the separation of baseboards or crown molding, as well as you look at the width of cracks and separations. And once you get past the 1/8 of an inch, we always say it's not a crack anymore. It's a separation. The sloping of the floors. We tell our folks before you leave the room, you cross it. and you take small steps so that way you can feel any change, those kind of things. And then you can document all those symptoms and signs to include the doors and the windows that are not opening or closing properly or sticking, whatever the case might be, and then what you see on the exterior. But you document all those symptoms and signs. And because of that, and the way that our standards of practice is, we have to render an opinion as to the performance of the foundation. So if you got enough of those symptoms and signs that lead you to believe that you've had some movement, then you would document those signs and then say, because of that, you have major settlement, in my opinion, and I'm recommending that you have a structural engineer come out to further evaluate.
Okay, so that's just what I was checking on, is to make sure that you actually, for big items like the roof and the foundation, those first two items on the checklist, you outsource that to other folks to come and do their part. Because did you climb up on the roof?
Well, you do climb up on the roof.
You do climb up, because I know that sometimes we see the little, what do they call them, whirly-bird things going around.
Are you talking from a ventilation standpoint? Or are you talking about?
I think he's referring to a drone. That's what they used to call them.
That's what they call drones. There we go. Can you use drones instead of getting up on roofs?
You can.
Okay.
You can.
That's additional training, though, and that type of thing.
Well, you have to be licensed. That's an FAA license that you have to get, Part 107.
It's an FAA license.
Correct. Yeah, you got to be licensed. But put a drone up for commercial purposes.
Okay. Well, we got a follow-up show that we're going to be doing here in 2 weeks, and Roy's going to be on that show. So I want to give us kind of a thank you to Roy for being here today. And we'll show you that follow-up show so you guys can get in line with it. The actual, and I'm looking for the name of it so I can just tell you what it's called, is who and what does the inspector do for you? In other words, what the end result is with this inspection, what will be your reactions and that type of deal. But Blair and I will be returning for that. I think Jeff's going to be there. So let's take this time to thank everybody. I'm Tom Holm with Champion School of Real Estate.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Blair Thomas with Cardinal Financial.
All right. And I'm Roy. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff's here. Jeff kind of went out of order. Now it's kind of weird because I'm doing this. Roy, will you tell us one more time for the folks out there listening how they can get hold of you before we sign off today?
Yeah, I'm Roy Quarter, Director of Inspector Education with Champion School of Real Estate, and you can pretty much reach me at any of the Champion's office. You just call and they'll know how to reach me. But if you wanted to call me personally, you feel free. You can call my cell phone, 214-228-4468, 214-228-4468. So I'm available to help you in any way I can. So I can lead you in the right direction concerning inspection. So we got a lot of inspector family that's out there. So.
Well, thank you so much. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. So goodbye for today. Take care.
All right.
Welcome Home Radio production provided by Lunatic Digital. Check the listing of this podcast for the links to our sponsors. And don't forget to like, share, and follow us on social media. Visit welcomehomeradio.net for more information.